Good evening, and welcome to WANA Live, the reading series of the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia. I'm your host, Damian Dressick. This is your other host.
Christina Fasonic. What's up, Damien?
Well, we have a chill in the air. Fall is on the march. I'm excited. It's almost mid-October. I'm waiting for that big full moon to shine. What are you doing, Christina? Is that some sort of West Virginia method of expressing your enthusiasm for the change of seasons for that coming autumnal equinox? Or
No, I was going to say we've passed that.
I think that's yeah. Well, that.
Well, tonight we're getting our first frost here in
Frost. Yes, well,
frost. But the cool thing is we should.
I have sweaters. I can wear sweaters now. I'm excited about this.
Oh yeah, the sweater season is nice, but tonight we're supposed to be able to see the northern lights from here again.
I've heard we also can see an amazing poet from here.
Absolutely, and why don't we get to that, because that's what we're here for, right?
Yes.
Yes. So tonight we have a new writer that we haven't had on the show before, and I met him when I was at Heinemann this summer. And if you haven't done that workshop, the Appalachian workshop, you absolutely have to do that. Look it up, Heinemann, Kentucky. It's absolutely awesome.
Is that at the settlement school, Christina?
It absolutely is, and I had the absolute best time. And I wrote about 1 billion words, and it was just phenomenal. I had a great teacher, and I met lots of great writers, including our guest tonight, who is Willie Carver. He is an educator from Floyd County, Kentucky. In 2021, he was named the 2022 Kentucky Teacher of the Year after teaching French and English at Montgomery County High School. In 2022, he resigned from his position, citing homophobia, which comes up in his work. He is the author of Gay Poems for Red States, a collection of narrative poems published by the University Press of Kentucky in 2023. That book has won lots and lots of awards, and I want to get this right, so I'm going to look it up one more time. But Willie has been, as of, I think this was announced maybe yesterday, been nominated for a very prestigious award in American letters. And let me make sure that I get the proper name of that award. It's the Judy Gaines Young Book Award. And Willie has been nominated for that, amongst other people and friends of our show, including Pauletta Hansel, Jane Hicks, and a number of other amazing writers. So let's bring him on the show. Hey, Willie.
Hey, Christina. Hey, David. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Sure. Thank you for making time for us, because I know, since I've, I'm friends with you on Facebook, that you are a busy person.
I am absolutely lucky to be so busy and grateful for it. But yeah, I think in Hyman, when I did that reading, that was my 100th reading that year in person, not even counting the online stuff. So it's been wild.
That is incredible. And I can't even imagine. You probably do readings in your sleep.
The funny thing is,
doesn't happen here.
What is that, Damien?
Well, let's hope that's not what we've got our audience together for.
Not one in my sleep, but I was also doing my MFA and working full time and wrote that second book. And the funny thing is, I get really car sick. And so my husband, luckily, was with me for a lot of these things. And so unlike most people, I actually have to look down. If I look at the road, I'll get sick. So I wrote basically the entirety of Tore All to Pieces on my phone going from event to event, which is kind of cool.
That is awesome. See, I do have the other kind of motion sickness where I can't read a book in the car because it's faster.
Mine, if I look ahead and the driver doesn't do what I'm expecting, that's when I feel sick. So I'm lucky in that way, I guess.
Well, yeah. I mean, you were able to write a manuscript. That's pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to be reading for us tonight?
I read a couple poems from Gay Poems for Red States and maybe a poem or maybe two from Tore All to Pieces.
That would be wonderful.
It's a terrific title, Willie. I really like the title.
Which Gay Poems for Red States?
Yeah, that's a great title for a book.
Listen, the University Press of Kentucky knows exactly what they're doing. And the original title was The Truth Will Stand When the World's on Fire. And I had a little subtitle down here that said "Gay Poems for Red States," and I had like a cartoony cover because I had to make a cover before I can write a book. It's a weirdness, and they didn't even ask. Suddenly, like they were calling it "Gay Poems for Red States," and I was like, "No, no, no, that's not actually the title." And they were like, "Willie, that's the title." Like, that was my
I think
throw
it's
off.
good they got their way.
Me too. Me too.
Yes.
So I will let them make all executive decisions from this point on.
Well, we are big fans of the University of Kentucky Press, and what they are doing for Appalachian letters and authors is totally awesome. And they keep going, and we are so thrilled for the work that they're doing.
Absolutely. I was working with Narrative for it's a nonprofit that does story exchanges, and they were wanting sort of an Appalachian approach to the story exchange and asked me if I'd be willing to create it. And I absolutely and straight up gave them credit based how I approached that question off their Appalachian Future series.
That's awesome.
Looking not at what we think Appalachia should be, but what's already there.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. So we will disappear and let you read your work.
Awesome. Not awesome that you're disappearing. I liked having you. So this is from Gay Poems for Red States. I wrote it during a pretty tumultuous time in my life while I was watching community members attack first me for being a gay teacher, and then in my silence, my students. So this first poem actually just sort of fell out of me. I don't think the pressure I was feeling in that moment made this be written. And it was then that I realized there was a kid inside of me who wanted to speak. This is called Minnie Mouse Toy. Would you like a Hot Wheel or a Barbie, sir? The words float like ghosts in front of me when I speak them, frozen by the winter air, whipping in through the drive-through window. Boy's toy. Gruff. No, just boys and toy, 2 words. Okay, we have Hot Wheels and Barbies. No wonder you work at McDonald's, you idiot. Idiot. I'm 5 again. My mother's knee-length interstate cold denim coat is a traveling house. And when I stand close enough, I smell floor cleaner, cigarette smoke, minty gum, home. The bright lights of McDonald's are a circus of plastic shine and glee, and my tiny heart twists with such rapture that I feel dizzy and hug the clouds of home that are her coat. My mom clears her throat. Could I get a Happy Meal with the Minnie Mouse car? The words are soft like the quilted lining of her coat, and each petal of a word builds a flower of please. The cashier hammers a few buttons, then yips our order into a thin microphone, and then her eyes grab me and drag me from the coat. I pull the coat closer until I'm surrounded by the smoke and gum and cleaner and can feel the blankets on my bed piled around me. But I hear her through the imaginary walls as she hands the boxed meal to my mother. You know you're going to ruin him. The words lodge themselves into the foundation of the imaginary home. It dissolves. And suddenly, I'm just a boy near a coat in a bright place with nowhere to hide. She says, thank you, but the flowers are dead and they fall fast to the ground. My mother carries the cartoon-colored box to the booth, drops a pack of menthols on the gleaming tabletop, and gently directs the toy car to the side of the cigarette box as she lights up a cigarette, exhales a whispering cobalt storm cloud of mint and worry, and then fights gravity to pull the edges of her lips into a smile. Go ahead and play, Bubby. We can eat after Mommy smokes. She tries to ash her cigarette. I try to play. The toy car is as heavy as her smile, and like the smoke, I know the weight of it is my fault, and unlike the smoke, I can't make her feel better. The plastic is too thick, and the paint on Minnie's pink hair bow looks like my little baby cousin's cheeks that change from white to red while she screams crying and her mom begs her to stop. I look to my mother's face. I pull myself up from the memory. I'm 16, I'm in a drive-thru, and the word idiot is snowing on me. Sir, we have 2 toys, Barbie and Hot Wheels. He drives away. I keep standing. I'll read one more from this collection. This is called Waiting for God. I was excited and nervous to be baptized because I thought it would make me brand new, like a toy still tied up and glued to its packaging, and also keep me from going to hell. In the 3 days until my baptism, I still had fifth grade homework. And on a Thursday evening, salted thick with dogwood and cool spring air, my mom joined me. We stretched out on the tired hood of her car under the Gregorian hum of the crackling housing project parking lot streetlight so that I could color in the phases of the moon with a pencil. She brought out a blanket and even let me sip some weak black coffee. Do you think God will wait till Sunday for the end of the world? What if he came tonight and I went to hell? She brought the cover around my shoulders, and her frayed and overworked arms anointed the bargain bin blanket with the power to embrace me. She gestured upwards. The same God that put them stars in the sky didn't do it so he could send you to hell. He holds them up for a reason. He'll wait on you. The dark sky became an aquarium of sparks and love, and every fish had a name. Those 3 days stretched into 3 decades. Despite the baptism, preachers and lawmakers and winners and losers and lovers and haters and neighbors with tongues and arms hot like red irons would over and over again hold my head underwater, hoping that the metal hiss of steam would mock me as I drowned. But with each plunge under, the darkness of the water would part, and fish made out of stardust would lay hands on me and dance in the spirit. I'd like to read just one more poem. This comes from Tore All to Pieces, which is a new fragmented novel in poems and stories. And I won't even try to explain it because it's, I haven't figured out how I'm going to yet. But this is one of the poems in that collection. And it's called Unto These Men Do Nothing. We all return to ancient Sodom, did heed its brimstone beacon, time after all just a construct. My brothers and I agreed to keep ticking away, and were greeted at the gate with wine and whores and sand, and Lot came by with men we already knew were angels. And they looked upon my sweet cousin Robbie, who even back then they knew would in 2009 be murdered and stuffed into a plastic box in some suburb of Louisville when he fled the closeness of creeks and hollers and hills for some form of sodomite freedom. And the angel said unto us, we are sorry for what you have all been through, because that's not what this story is about. But we had already been through what we would already been through because of what this story would be. And we joined the angry mob and called out with them to Lot to bring down the men that we might know them, that they might speak to the fullness of blazing ruins, whose smoke rises beyond time like a cracked furnace. And Lot stood at the door, already drunk, and said, no, my friends, do not do this wicked thing. But weary of being clutched between verses, we named this a time for gathering stones and cast them till thunder shook the earth with ink.
We're having trouble hearing you, Damien. While we wait. No, we still are having trouble hearing you. Can you hear him, Willie?
I cannot.
Say something else.
Something else.
Perfect.
Something else sounded great.
No, what wonderful work. I liked all of it in different ways.
Thank you.
Especially the end. It was almost McCarthy-esque with its sodomite freedom and furnaces and smoke, and you had the hints of Melville and the King James Bible, and where man's travails and some other very fancy word all are apostate.
I think McCarthyism plus King James Bible plus some vague reference to the here is basically Pentecostal preaching. I think you could take that Wheeling, West Virginia speech he gave, put a at the end of each line, and I would have listened as a kid, at least.
You're right. You're right. I too really had like different reactions to this because I was imagining, and I think this happens, and I know that your daughter is like 10, right? Something like that, I think. Willie?
My
Don't,
daughter,
yeah, don't you have a child that's around 10 or 11 years old
I
or
do not,
something?
but I have nephews. I have a nephew who's 10.
Nephews, that's
That's
it.
who you're thinking of.
So yeah, because we had talked about this. And
Yeah.
I was thinking though to myself, because I have a 13-year-old son, and how I reacted to those first two poems, first from the perspective of mom, like
Mm.
your mother in the poem, like, and understanding my child and understanding children, and being like the best mom you can be, even when it's hard. But also I was imagining what it would be like to be a young gay man reading your poetry and feeling like, oh, oh yeah, that's me. And I love that it can reach multiple audiences on different levels, but with like tremendous emotional response.
Thank you, first of all. And one of the things I did not expect was that response from LGBTQ readers, especially from gay men. Um, I have this theory born from teaching. I had a student who was in a very emotional place, and I was very worried, and the student was sort of shut down. And I think I instinctively was doing this like I am the teacher thing. And then I sort of broke that and started talking to him like a human being, and then he responded as a human being. And so I really believe if you if you speak and you're vulnerable and you sort of release the shield, you'll get a response, often in the same language. I wish I had kept them all because I could have made an anthology of the poems that strangers who've never written poetry sent me.
Oh my goodness, that's
And
incredible.
it's not like there was ever a call, please write poetry. But I think I also wanted very approachable poetry. That was
It's
important to me.
funny because you really balance breathtaking lyricism with kind of a speech of the people effect, a flower of please, and then the business of, well, it can keep me from going to hell. I love that you're engaged in both of those at the same time.
Hey,
Yeah,
y'all, my computer has decided to update itself, but I anticipated it and had my phone ready.
you're good. I got you back in.
The only
So
issue is I can't hear you, but I think we can rectify this very soon.
can
Maybe
you
now.
hear us now?
Perfect. So sorry about that.
I know what happens.
I heard you balance lyricism.
Yeah. You're balancing this breathtaking lyricism with a very much a speech of the people kind of effect. It has a wonderful juxtaposition. It's the a flower of please. It's like, damn. I mean, it's but this lovely linguistic business there, and then in the Gregorian hum, and every fish had a name. It's like, whew, it's wonderful work.
Thank you. I think two things pushed that approach. One, I have this memory that comes to me almost daily. I was probably sixth grade. Went to my neighbor's house. She was, I don't know, my dad's second cousin. It's Appalachia, like she's family. I don't really even know what Marie was, but her house was in front of where we caught the bus, which was about a half a mile trek. And when it was cold, she would let us in where it was warm. And I was looking at her fish tank, and she had a little sign that said "No smoking," and I thought it was funny because I was a kid. And I said, "That's so funny." And she's standing there in a pink bathrobe, smoking, and without even waiting a second, she drops her hand in and pulls it out and hands it to me. And then I go, "Oh, you didn't have to give it to me." And she said, "As long as I ever have anything, it's yours because we're family and I love you." Um,
Oh,
and it was like it's one of the holiest moments of my life because I knew like there were 100 miles of deep water under this. But it also taught me that this old show don't tell motif. I think sometimes it's a good idea to try to get someone to express what they're feeling, but I'm like, I don't want to just show people I love them. I want to tell them. I want to make sure there is no confusion in this poem. Like, I need my mom to say out loud what this poem is about in this poem so that the person hearing it who needs it hears it, because having them understand exactly what's happening matters much more than anything else. And I think the other part of it I really wanted to pay homage to my family. And so I kind of just imagine, obviously Appalachia has been making beautiful ballads and poetry and literature, but I said, what if we were completely walled off and separated from everyone and had no access to the tradition? What would we have made? Like what in the way we talk is most beautiful, and how would we have chosen to accentuate that? So that was another thing that I was really thinking about when I was writing.
Do you mean when you say tradition, do you mean like the literary tradition, or do you mean the Appalachian literary tradition?
Mostly I mean because I think, ballads and traditional songs and ways of storytelling are definitely us. But I think even then we have outside influence in terms of narrative. I was just thinking purely on a language level, just purely in terms of poetry. Like, what is my mama doing that is not going to be published? What is my uncle doing? How does he hit his voice? How does his sentence stretch out without having relative clauses? How does so much description happen in a scene where there's not a lot of action? And so I really tried to listen in my mind for what they taught me already, and really I don't like saying elevate it because it makes it seem like it was low. I wanted to like bring it into the light.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I feel like there is a tradition of that in Appalachian literature, but I think that, this current like generation of Appalachian writers is fortunate because there's already been this groundwork laid
Mm-hmm.
to not just accept who we are in the work and the nuances and the stretching out of the language and the way that we talk to each other and the cutting off of syllables and the adding on of syllables and all the things. But I feel like not just that there's an acceptance of that, but there's almost like a craving, a desire for that
Mm-hmm.
amongst people who have been sort of denied it in many ways in the American literary tradition, because we know this as Appalachians. We've been told we need to clean up our language. We can't say whoop,
Mm-hmm.
we can't say fish. We have to talk in a certain way. And I think that we're finally at this point where there's not just an acceptance but a desire for Appalachian literature
Mm-hmm.
in a way
Well,
that we haven't seen before.
Robert Guy invited me to Gurney Fest. So I had not joined the MFA yet. Yeah, I have multiple degrees from college, from Southern or Appalachian colleges in literature, and I literally said, "Who is Gurney Norman?"
Yeah,
That's a
right.
travesty. And
Yeah.
he said, "You have been failed by your education." And I've since read everything he's written, but he's right. Even the way that we organize, for the most part, the university structure, anyone's replaceable from any place, and place no longer matters. And I think it's done a disservice to regional language, regional approaches. But I love that Appalachia has fought that tooth and nail, often from outside the institution, and in some cases from within the institution.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like
Mhm.
we've made so many inroads in the
Mhm.
last decade of trying to like shake off the expectations and the boundaries that have been placed on Appalachian writers and writing,
Mhm.
um, to kind of fully emerge as, and we're continuing to emerge.
Mhm.
Who are Appalachians? Who are Appalachian writers and artists and musicians? And what are we as ourselves, not as people expect us to be or
Mhm.
people insist that we are? And I
Mhm.
think that's you had posted something about that the other day about a young woman who came to you and said, I think so
Mhm.
about about who she is as an Appalachian and all of this. And I find that that is a process of becoming who we already are.
Mhm.
And we can do it in writing, and that's exciting.
Yeah, and it's hard work even, right, to do in writing. I
Yes.
think a lot about um, this. The piece of advice that I've heard most often when you talk about place is people will say, "You write what's unique to that place," right? And when I think about that advice, right, let's say that I'm writing about Eastern Kentucky and I'm, picking up those things like, I don't know, a banjo and some bologna and some gravy, things I write about all the time, honestly. But often that advice is saying, in order for me to know what is unique to this area, I first have to stand outside of this area and look at this area. And that's kind of a problem. It really, what we're saying is look at your own life through someone else's eyes so that you know who you are. And I'm like, why would I do that? I already know who I are. Or I am. I like I are.
I love that.
But I mean, yes, there were biscuits and gravy and fried bologna, but there was also Taco Bell. Can I put Taco Bell in my Appalachian poem? And so I think we're kind of sometimes fighting it from both sides. Like, yes, I want to be allowed to write about kudzu, but also I don't want to have to write about kudzu, if that makes sense. And is it still Appalachian? If I write a horror short story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are deprived of authenticity and trying to break into that without drawing on just tropes that signal authenticity rather than talk about the real, as you said. Like, there's just as many Taco Bell places in Eastern Kentucky as there might be biscuits and gravy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that readers, they want this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we've been told for a long time that readers only wanted a certain kind of Appalachia represented in the literature. They only wanted the dark Appalachia, the toothless Appalachia, the Mountain Dew spilling Appalachia. But in reality, even if that is part of who we are, there's much more to this texture. We have, ancestors that were Union, people who formed unions and fought in these unions and battled against corporations, and people who fought against racism and fought against homophobia, fought against all of these things. And that's all part of this so complex texture that is Appalachian, being Appalachian. And I think that people are finally like, okay, yeah, let's hear it. Let's really hear from you, Appalachians.
That the quote that you were mentioning earlier that came from a student. I went into an Appalachian school. So first I have to tell the story because it's so beautiful. I knew I'm coming in from the Department of Education as the teacher of the year, and the goal was to let Appalachian kids speak for themselves and to have a column in Kentucky Teacher. And I get to this school, and this vice principal meets me. She says, "I'm so sorry, the principal's out. He got called out on emergency. I don't know who you are, but we'll fix this. We'll find the work." And I go, "Okay, it's no worries." And so she goes, "So who are you? What do you need?" And I say, "Well, I'm supposed to interview 6 random kids. It was supposed to be randomized." And she goes, "Wait, why are you interviewing them?" And I said, I'm doing a column about Appalachian voice." And she goes, "Wait, what are you doing?" And I say it again. This 5'4" woman stands between, she stops and gets between me and the school and then puts her hands out and go, "Buddy, I ain't trying to hurt your feelings, but who the hell are you to tell their story?" And I fell in love. And I was like, 1, I love you. 2, can we go talk in your office for half an hour? I'm from 10 minutes down the road. 3, I had already told the superintendent, I will not publish this until you sign off on it. And they didn't even want to do that, but I was like, no, it's a rule, for your sake and my sake. So they agreed. So I told her, you have to sign off on this or I won't publish it. So I had 40 hours of recordings from all these students across this county. And basically they asked me to go back and interview kids who had had more positive experiences with life. Afterwards. So I refused and I was like, I'll just scrub this. I don't want to have I think they were uncomfortable with the fear that these students lived in. But along the same note, the question was, what does being Appalachia mean? And a lot of them talked about stereotypes. So that girl said, what she said. Another boy said something so beautiful. He said, "It's not just that we're different from the stereotypes, we're deeper." And I think about his words all the time. And awesome. Talk about reclaiming the biscuit, right? And the Mountain Dew mouth. Yeah. And another girl said, "I can do the same damn thing as somebody else, but because of where I'm from, they fill in the gaps with what they don't know." And I think about that line a lot too.
100%. And I think that Appalachians, after you've lived long enough, you just get so weary
Mm-hmm.
of the presumptions. I remember being at a conference, being in an elevator and having my name tag on, and having another academic say to me, "I've never met a West Virginian with a PhD before."
I love to make fun of it.
I started laughing.
My favorite story, they were doing one of those documentaries like Children of the Holler. And my friend's dad, who owns a coal mine, so you can imagine how much money this family has, is being interviewed. So he comes out, of course, completely covered in coal black. And he takes his boot off when he walks into the trailer that is his office, because he has his own office. And of course, his socks are that somewhere between white and gray that a coal miner socks are.
Yeah.
And he goes in and they're interviewing him, and they point the camera down to his socks, his white socks, and he's covered in coal black, a millionaire, or $1 million coal miner. And they go, "So do you not have shoes?" And he goes, "No, boys, we're hoping to get some by next year, but times is tough and the Walmart's awful far away." Mind you, like $40,000 vehicle parked right outside the trailer, so they don't even catch it; it goes right over their head. And that's my approach in these things, or to get mean.
It is hard not to, because over a lifetime of abuse from other
Mhm.
people, it's
Yeah,
hard not to either try to make a fool out of them or get angry about it and say, what are you talking about? So,
We have
um,
a comment.
yeah, we do have a comment.
oh,
So, Cindy Lou Withers says, "Reclaiming the biscuit with."
absolutely reclaiming that biscuit.
Yeah, I think that we should
Thank
come up with a podcast called "Reclaiming the Biscuit" and have it be like public stories about Appalachian identity.
I have a few with biscuits involved, so I love it.
Yeah, right. And I think too. I'm encouraged by how conversations and things that have been improving with literature, but also just culture in general in Appalachia.
Mhm.
I think we're heading towards something good. We're doing good stuff now, but I think we're heading even more towards good stuff, and that makes me excited about what's next.
I
Definitely.
agree.
All right, so Willie, you've got a second book that you told us you're working on.
Mhm.
What stage are you at with that?
It is finished, and editing the heck out of it at this point.
Right.
It's a fragmented novel, and there's about 8 or 9 short stories that are together, kind of one cohesive universe that takes place in a small town in eastern Kentucky. And I don't know, that universe is haunted by these poems, or maybe they're the ether surrounding it. It's sort of how I'm feeling it. But it started, I was climbing Montreal, the mountain in Montreal, and there were women at least 30 years older than me who whizzed by me in wearing high heels while I was like out of breath and grabbing some place to sit. And I had this visceral memory of my cousin and me taking our bikes to the top of the holler because we were going to ride down them. And we couldn't get all the way up, so we had to get off our bikes. And there was this mean little ginger girl who looks at us, and she goes, even when I imitate her, I want to have her smoking, but she was 9 years old. But she goes, "And bikes work better if you sit on them." It was genius. I hated her. I hated her for years. I'd never learned her name, just this mean little girl on the bus. So I've overcome with the need to write a poem about it. And after I write it, and it's kind of like bucolic and not exactly too serious, that little girl like would not leave me alone. And was haunting me, wanting me to tell her story. And so then I found myself writing her story. And when I wrote her story, that very scene happens again in the story. And I realize like the truth value of this little girl is very different, but both of these are true. This could have been literally what was happening to her that day. And so I've been wrestling with that idea a lot lately now. Um, what is truth when we talk about being each other's contexts?
Like, what is the other side? you know, if you're standing here and there's the conversation, what's it like if you're standing here?
Yeah, and I think often we talk about like half truths or the opposite truth, and I'm like, no, I think they're both true. The vantage point shifts everything. Yeah, that was a really nice way to put it.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. I'm looking forward to
Cool.
that. So, before we sign off, we want to let everybody know that next Thursday we're having a very special edition of WANA Live. We have banded together with some other writers from the region to raise some money for the artists of the Asheville Arts District, who some of you might know because of the flooding from the hurricane before this one. They lost their inventory, their working spaces, all their livelihood. And so some writers are going to come on the show. Karen Crago, Carrie Gunter Seymour, John Hoppenthaler, and Patrick McGinty and Todd Carlisle will be joining us next week for a reading, and we'll have a ticker going on the bottom of the screen for how you can donate money to help out Asheville artists that are definitely in need. So please join us next week.
So yeah, we'll see you then on 10/17.
Yes. See everybody later, and thanks, Willie.
Thank you so much, and thank you for doing that. It's great to meet y'all.
Yes. Good night.
Good night,
See ya.
everybody.